welcome to GATEtv. You might have joined me here recently as I sat down with manager Jay Saunders to discuss his squad for the 2021-22 campaign, and he did mention he hopes to get one key sign-in over the line. Well, he has got that sign-in over the line, and I'm really pleased to be joined by Ben Greenhalgh. Ben, a massive warm welcome to Hartsdown Park. It's great to have you on board. Jay was very quick to secure your services. Was the decision to join the club as quick and easy for you?
Yeah, I think it was, to be honest. At first, when obviously I was finished with Tunbridge, I wanted to just keep my options open. And then as soon as Corley and Jay rang me, I think it was probably pretty much the day after, I'd pretty much agreed that I was going to commit to them. And then it was just finalising the plans. And I know, like I saw in Jay's interview on Friday, he said about hoping for a decision by Monday. But to be honest, I think my decision was already made. It was just a case of then speaking to the other people that I had spoken to and letting them know. And this was the route I was going to go down.
And obviously you've worked with Jay before, and you've mentioned assistant manager Jamie Coyle. Were they two quite big factors in your decision to come to Hartsdown Park?
Yes, definitely. I mean, it was good to play against Margate in pre-season last year because I got a bit more of a feel for the club, the way it is with Jay and Coyle. Obviously, I know a few of the players and have played against them or played with them before as well. So those little things sort of add to it. But it's just when I spoke to Jay and Coyle, it was just what their plans were. And obviously they're wanting to do a little bit better than last season. They're looking to build, obviously, the plans of the club from Margate themselves. So there's a lot of things that hopefully are positive for the future. And that's why I wanted to jump in and get on board.
And you touched upon it there, and it leads to my next question, actually. You played at Hartsdown Park. You featured in the Tunbridge Angels side that played in pre-season, which feels like a lifetime ago. What was your sort of impressions of the football club then?
I mean, obviously then we weren't used to having fans, so it was quite good to come down to Margate and experience a game with fans. But I mean, for myself, it was quite a sort of welcoming feeling because actually the fans, I scored down at one end, and the fans were sort of giving me a good bit of banter, and I think that makes a difference when they're not really on your case and you know they're sort of applauding you and things, and they were giving me a good bit of stick in the corners when I was taking corners, telling me to stop putting the ball in. So it was all those sort of things. You buy into it because then you know what sort of club you're coming into. So that was a massive thing for me. And like I said, when I spoke to Jay and Coyle on that day, it seemed like there was something coming. And obviously, I think they're building something there. So that's why I wanted to be a part of it. And
you can already say you've scored at Hartsdown Park as well. So there's a big tick. We just need to make sure it's in the Margate kit now. And Jay and Amy have already been busy retaining the services of players. You mentioned that you know a few of them there. And you must just be so looking forward to linking up with the players again. I bet you've never been so excited for pre-season after this 2 months.
No, to be honest, I'm popping down on Saturday to see some of the players. I think there's just a little sort of in-house thing going on. So that's going to be good to sort of get back involved and be a part of it. It's crazy to think that we're still sort of 4 months away from the season starting. But that can only work to our advantage because obviously that amount of time off is going to make everyone hungry. It gives obviously Jay and Corley that chance to build the squad that they want to build. And obviously just can't wait for August the 14th.
And you mentioned you know a few of the boys already. Are there any names of players that you've either played with or played against who you're looking forward to now calling a teammate? Yeah,
so obviously Ben Swift and Jack Richards were both sort of the younger lads when coming through at Maidstone when we were there. I think they were both coming through. I think Ben was more coming through the scene when we won the Ryman, and obviously Jack started to get involved when we were in the Conference Prem as well. So it'd be good to play with them now because obviously I've noticed, and obviously haven't played against them last year, their careers have developed. Their experience has developed massively into first team football now. So that's going to be really good to be a part of that, having seen their sort of journey from a younger age. Obviously Norman Wabo was at Dartford, and I know he's the next signing at the moment. So he's going to be a good one to link back up with again, and just hopefully looking forward to seeing what other players come into play.
Yeah, exactly. It's a strange time at the moment because I'm seeing some teams are playing pre-season friendlies. I'm thinking that's a long time to wait for competitive football, but I'm sure supporters will be really pleased to know that the boys are getting together and those plans for pre-season will be starting very, very soon. And some supporters would have seen you play in that pre-season friendly, and I'm sure those that follow Kent football as well will be familiar. But how would you describe your own playing style?
It's a difficult one because I think obviously it's changed a little bit from when I sort of came onto the scene at sort of 16, 17 years old. I think then I was much more of just a pacey winger, get at the fullback and make things happen and entertain. That entertainment level is still within me. But at the same time, having played for so many years in sort of Conference South, in the Ryman as well, then that sort of made my game a little, not, you could say it's sort of non-league my game a little bit, and I'm doing the right things at the right times now, which is a massive positive. So at the same time, obviously with Coyley and Jay, they know I can adapt to different positions, and I've had to do that over the last few years a little more than I would have in the past. But again, that comes down to the experience. And I think I know if I am chucked into the sort of the middle of the pitch, I know got to keep it a little bit more simple and do the sort of the harder things that you might not have wanted to do when you were younger, that go a little bit more unnoticed. But they're the things that really matter and really count.
Yeah, that experience and understanding of the game will serve in such good stead. And of course, you're coming on board with your coaching experience. And we're going to talk about your playing career as well. But I just wanted to learn a little bit more about what you do as a coach. I know that you head up the academy at Dartford and you've started your UEFA coaching qualifications as well. So is that something that excites you? Again, kind of teaming up with Jay and Jamie, two very experienced coaches, to learn off of them week in, week out in the Isthmian League? Yeah,
definitely. I mean, obviously, it was a good decision for me because I can trust the pair of them, having played for them before, and having played for them both at different clubs. Really, Coyley was at Maidstone as well when I was there, and obviously been with Coyley at Dartford as well. So that was a massive thing for me. If I wanted to go into a form of a coaching role, I needed to know what team I was joining, rather than just sort of being chucked in at the deep end and you might start disagreeing with opinions. So I know I'm definitely going to be on the same wavelength as Jay and Coyley. So that's a massive positive. At the same time, I mean, I had a lot of different offers this season, where it was to continue playing at a different level, or was it to go straight into coaching or straight into a little bit more serious coaching at clubs. But I think Coyley and Jay were on the same wavelength as me for where my sort of career is in the next few years. It's still very much focused on playing, just with obviously all my coaching experiences and doing what I'm doing at Dartford, just to add that little bit of extra coaching. But for me, it's going to be very much on Jay and Coyley. And then when I can help, when I need to help, when I need to offer my experience or my advice to any of the other players, and that's where I'm going to jump in.
Yeah, and I guess as well, both of them have experience of that dynamic of being a coach and being a player as well. So I suppose the work that you're doing off the pitch, the technical stuff, will only benefit you in your playing role as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, like you said, I think when I actually went to Maidstone the first time, I was only there for a few games when I was signing for Inverness. It was when they were in the Ryman South. And Jay was actually coming on. I remember thinking I'd spoken to him. The first time I've ever met Jay. I'd spoken to him and I'd started the game, and then suddenly I see Jay with his kit on and he's coming onto the pitch for the last 15 minutes. So obviously it's good to see how that environment can work. And obviously he's done that very well, with the fact that he managed to go from being a player with these players to then managing these players, and then actually managing them at quite a high level, because he kept on players like Rojo, who he played with, all the way to the Conference Prem and things. So that's something that I'm going to try and learn from now. And exactly the same with Coyley. Coyley was the same. I think Coyley probably could still play. So
Jay will probably have his form signed just in case.
Exactly, so I think he might try and get in his head a little bit. I think he should have carried on playing, to be fair, when he was at Dartford. So I know he's had a few years out of the game now, but you never know. He might get his boots back on.
We shall have to see. We shall see indeed. And taking it back to football and playing, where did your love of the game first come about? Was it something that you did really just as a youngster, more into your teen years?
No, I was always into football, probably a little bit too much. But I've always been into players. I've always really followed players. And it was when I was 3 or 4 years old, I remember seeing Alan Shearer lift the Premier League with Blackburn. So I suddenly became a Newcastle fan from when he went to Newcastle. And then I realised I became a Man United fan when I started supporting David Beckham and Cristiano Ronaldo. So for me, it was very much following players and actually trying to take on and being a little bit inspired by what they do on and off the pitch. So they probably played the biggest part in me, because I'd always find as a younger footballer, I'd look up to that. And I think it happens to a lot of footballers nowadays anyway, and try and take what they do, the right things, what they do onto the pitch. And I think obviously where I had that little bit of pace as a 16, 17-year-old and being a winger, it probably worked quite well for me to sort of look at Ronaldo at the time, who was the best player in the world at that time.
So I just have to follow up answer with the question of who is that player for you now? Who is the player that just like really energizes you, inspires you when you watch them?
It's hard not to say Ronaldo, even though I know he's towards the end of his career and he's very much changed this game. But then in some ways, it's something that I've had to do as well, where I was very much always a winger, out and out, run with the ball, whereas I sort of became a number 10, getting in behind and creating a little bit more play. And then actually Ronaldo is starting to do that himself in a different form. He's become a bit more of a centre forward where he doesn't do as much moving about the pitch. I've still got the legs, I'm that little bit younger, so I've still got the legs to do that running about the pitch. But for him, he's adapted his game to his age and his abilities, which I think is very clever for him. So I think a player like that, where he's looked after himself so well, I probably can't look at any other player and be as inspired because of what he's done in the game.
Yeah, he really is such a role model in terms of that elite superstar who just puts it graft clearly to sustain his career and a work ethic that's just is phenomenal. And when did you first begin to take your football a little bit more seriously?
To be honest, that was quite late on. It was at about 15, 16 when I signed for Corinthians Football Club, because actually I was always one of the better football players in my sort of year group and things like this. But I was never really at that academy level. I always wanted to be, and I loved the game so much that I wanted to be. But I actually got to the top level of sort of national club championships of athletics. And I think where I'd worked so hard on that running and sort of my 1,500, my 3,000 metres, that only improved my football, because I just became so much fitter and stronger on a football pitch at the age of 15, 16. And I remember going into Welling first team at 16 and doing pre-season with them, and I was number one at the running. And it's something I always try and say to the academy boys now, because it's quite cutthroat, the world of football, especially when you're young and you're coming into the game. You can have one bad training session and that's their opinion on you. So for me, I always try and say that you need to be at the fittest that you can be, so that when you go into that training session, you're winning something that you know you can win. At the age of 16, you might not go and win the shooting challenge, or you might not go and score 5 goals in training, but at least if you can be as fit as possible and be able to be at the top of the running, then you're going to get noticed that way. And that's definitely how I got noticed at Welling, and that's how I got given my opportunity. So I can only look back and say it's got to come from my previous athletics experiences and just being as fit as I could be.
That's really interesting, actually, to kind of hear how a player's almost taking those transferable skills from another sport. And you're a really good golfer as well. Are you just one of those annoying people that's good at every sport?
A little bit, but I'm sure Corley would say he's the same, but better.
Oh, okay.
But no, Corley's he's been very good in the past at getting in my head on the golf course. So I'm sure that might be one reason he wanted me to sign, so that he could have a few closer matches down at Prince's Golf Club. But no, to be honest, yeah, I think that's down to my dad, really. My dad brought me up playing a lot of sports. And I think it helps. Obviously, maybe golf, tennis, things like that, they might not help in football, but just to be able to play to a reasonable level is just quite exciting. And obviously, with football being on a Saturday or when I was doing full-time football, especially up in Scotland, I had nothing to do in the afternoon. So for me, that was go out on the golf course and play in the afternoon. It became a little bit of a Gareth Bale.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because I think there's got to be something that people learn from every sport. And even if it is just with golf, that mental resilience, especially if you're getting stick from Coily, players giving you stick on the pitch in the Ishmael League, it's not going to be a problem. I definitely think we have got to now do some kind of Margate FC golf day, get the GoPros on the buggies, and I just have to see this content unfold.
You might have to watch out for some of Jay's shots. They're a little bit wild.
It's definitely, we've got to make that happen, that's for sure. But going back to the football and on your career, you then were at Welling for a time, but not many people can say they left part of you road for Milan. Tell Margate supporters all about that little period. Well, I say that little period, that massive period of your career, because it's fascinating.
Yeah, it's a strange one, to be honest, because obviously when I went I was with the Kent rep team under Ken Brook, and he just took us to what we thought was a training session, and it ended up being Football's Next Star, which, to be honest, looking back on it, was quite a good sort of reality TV football show, which we've never really had since. I don't know why things like that never carried on, because when you're thinking now as football fans, we just want to watch football all day, every day. And the programmes that we're watching now are like the All or Nothings, Man City, Tottenham, the Salford City programmes, the Sunderland Till I Die. They're the ones that obviously I'm looking for the next season to come out. So a reality TV show in football would be great to watch rather than just be a part of. But no, for me, I was quite lucky. I managed to do quite well, and Jamie Redknapp spotted me from that, and it just sort of went step by step. And then as I got a little bit closer, and as we went out to Italy on the show, it's just I started realising that it was something serious. I think that's the one thing that always sort of shocks me and surprises me a little bit looking back on it, is that I managed to adapt to myself and be in a place where I wasn't nervous, suddenly going from Welling into Milan. Like that's a crazy story when you think about it. And obviously not saying I was part of the first team or things like this, but I was every now and then training with them. I was seeing these players on a day-to-day basis when I was training with the reserves and things. So it's crazy when you look at it, and that's one thing that I do look back on, and I think it's helped me towards the rest of my football career. Just I don't really get nervous now because I've gone from suddenly being this Welling Corinthians young player to getting chucked in a training session with the biggest names in world football. So in terms of experiences, I don't think, maybe I will, you never know, we might get to Wembley with Margate or something like that, but I'm not sure there's ever going to be an experience where I look at that and think I'm going to be as nervous as what I was.
No, I just can't even imagine what that must have been like culturally, but also the intensity of the training sessions and so on. And you actually have a Champions League medal, I believe. Is that still with you? Is that still about? Can that come to Hartstown Park?
I've got a pretty bad story on that, but I've still got it somewhere. I was using it as a golf marker because basically I didn't feel like I'd earned it. I was part of the sort of travelling Real Madrid's to Real Madrid squad. And we trained at Real Madrid's training ground, which obviously they're playing at now, Madrid City, which was crazy as well. And then the game was at Bernabeu, and obviously where we were just part of that and being part of the coach journey and things, they had leftover medals. And it's not a case of normally you warrant a medal, you warrant a Premier League medal, and things, which is true, you do. I definitely didn't warrant it, but I was lucky enough to just being given one of the leftover medals for the players that didn't turn up to that final game. There were a few players that had left Inter and weren't going to be part of the travelling squad. So it's quite lucky to get that. But at the moment, I don't know where it is. It's definitely somewhere in the house. When you've got a newborn baby, things start to go missing. So I think he's hidden it somewhere.
That's just amazing. I can't believe you kind of use it as like an accessory at golf, and yeah, your little one might find it for you, and then that's just amazing. Like a brilliant story. And from Milan, you then moved to Scotland as well, and you mentioned it earlier about the sort of time and period spent by yourself as a professional trying to break into the game. Sometimes I don't think as supporters we realise quite how demanding and lonely and challenging that can be. What was your time like in Scotland, trying to break that professional circuit?
It was to be honest, it's strange because for footballing reasons, it actually went quite downhill where we changed management. I was doing quite well under Terry Butcher and just getting into the team, breaking in, having just signed that season. And then he left for Hibs at the time. And a new manager, John Hughes, came in, and it just wasn't part of his plans. And you could see that from the beginning, just within training, sort of not knowing names, not really getting involved in the squads as well. So that was difficult because when you're, especially when you go and play so far away, everyone's in the same boat. You're like a little family because a lot of your families aren't actually local. So that was a difficult one. But then at the same time, because we were so together and we were either out on a Saturday together or we'd spend every day together going and playing golf all together, it didn't really feel like football was the main thing while I was up there because there was so much else going on and we were all just a part of each other's doing. So that was a difficult one in terms of for the football side of things. And especially where Terry Butcher had spoken to me saying he could bring me into Hibs, and my head was sort of on this Scottish football career. And then he went and got fired from Hibs at the end of the season. And that's just the harsh reality of how football is. Not knowing where your journey's going to go and not knowing which manager you're going to stick with. And that's very much why I come back to the decision of coming to Margate. I go back to the decision of going back to Maidstone with Jay, going to Dartford with Coyley. I was even I was speaking to Coyley before about when he was with Welling. So my career now, having experienced enough of football, you need to go with a manager that you know and a manager that you trust, because when you end up playing for new managers, as good as it might be, the risk probably isn't worth it. And when you can trust someone, you know what they're going to get out of you, you know what you're going to get out of them. So that's the main thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really insightful answer. Again, particularly for those of us that never have to worry about playing careers, I think it does highlight how many kind of near misses, opportunities, and so much goes on behind the scenes, even at this level as well. And like you say, having people that you can trust, that you enjoy working with, ultimately is going to lead to success. And I suppose for you at that point in your career, you've gone through quite a lot. You must have been really resilient, but then came back to England and started playing football. And you played a lot across Kent football as well. What are the kind of highlights that spring to mind when you look back on your career? I say that you're only like 28, so there's still plenty of time ahead. But
I feel like I might be 35, the sort of career I've had, but I've still got it in the legs, so that's all that matters. No, I think probably the one sort of memory from non-league football has to be the round one moment against Stevenage at Maidstone, just because it was such a big thing for the club at the time, and we were obviously Ryman Premier, so we were joining into the FA Cup at, I think it was the second qualifying round. So we went through so many rounds to get, I think it was the first qualifying round, if not even earlier than that. We went through so many rounds to get where we were, and also just this was the time the club like Maidstone, they were on the way up. We were suddenly getting in from 1,500 to 2,000 fans, and the support just became massive. And those little moments, I think, is what sort of made the club and put it to where it is now. Those sort of moments on TV, live on BT Sport, and just to see the crowd come on the pitch at the end of the game after being such a part of what had happened. So I think for me personally, that was probably one of my highlights. But if I sort of look back, I mean, it's even, times that even with Maidstone when we won the league and things. And I've just been, one thing that I've been lucky enough, and I think it's one thing I've chosen quite well, is I've been involved with some really good squads. And I might look back at it and go, should I have stayed with this club for this time? Should I have maybe not gone to this club? And like I said before, it was very much, I was just choosing from managers that I did trust. And when you get two managers that you trust, it's difficult to go choose which one's going to be the right decision. And you can only look back at it and say, maybe you could have done this. But every squad that I've been a part of, and I look back at it and think, do you know what? Even if I might not have wanted to have gone back to that club, I was part of such a good squad, and I'm still in contact with all of them now. So I look back on my career, not as much of what we've done and what we've won and things like that. That's obviously a massive positive, and I'll probably look at that in 10, 15 years' time. I think now I look back at, so when I go back to the Maidstone year and I think about what a squad we had, and I just go the times we had on a match day and the times we had whenever we had a team night out and things. And exactly the same when I went on to Concord, I'm still in contact with those boys, and we still have a night out once or twice a year, bumping into each other, playing golf and things. So I think that's the thing where you do sort of form that family. And there have been squads that I've gone to where it hasn't had that. And for me, when there's not that sort of vibe in the changing room, it's not as entertaining or interesting to play for that club, which is difficult. And maybe fans don't see that. But for me, a changing room is massively important. And again, that's Jay and Coyley know that, because they've had it in the past. So it's another reason why I look forward to teaming back up with them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as Jay over the last few seasons has obviously built a core, and bringing in players like you into that fold, I think it's going to gel together really, really well. And I suppose even more so, there's so many months until August and until that first game of the season, which we're all really looking forward to. And I just wanted to touch on it quickly because it's been such a topsy-turvy year, and it's not to sort of make light of the seriousness of COVID at all. But one thing that has crossed my mind is the players. You've lost a lot of playing time as well. And has there been any considerations of having football sort of taken away, that you think, actually, I'm going to sort of appreciate elements of it that you didn't realise you'd appreciate until they weren't happening anymore?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the end of last season, where obviously we carried on because we were classed as elite. When the way we carried on, it became a little bit frustrating how one Saturday we might be playing, then suddenly we got 2 or 3 weeks off, and then that just became just a mess. And in some ways, I was actually glad that the season ended, because it just became a hassle going, are we getting back to football? You get your hopes up for it, and then suddenly you get knocked back down again, and it's going to stop again. So in some ways, I look at it now and I'm glad that we've got a date. It should be far enough away that everything's back to normal. Obviously, fingers crossed. But I do also find, I think for me, like you said, football missed, that was a big thing, because I always had in my head was to get to 250 National League appearances. That was always a big thing for me, and obviously that I'm talking, this was 2 years ago I was looking into it. And in the end I've actually only got 241, but obviously I didn't want to see and have to go another season out to go, you know, I need to get that 250. I can look back at that and go, look, the reason I didn't get my 250 was because of COVID, because we've had 2 disrupted seasons. So those little things, I always have targets, I always have goals to get to. I think I'm 9 appearances off 500 senior appearances. So obviously, so that's another one for me. I'm desperate to get to that, because those sort of milestones are something that you do look back on. And I think when you get towards the end of your career, you start counting certain things. I was never as focused on it when I was younger. But now it was like, yeah, it was good to get to nearly to 250 National League appearances. And obviously now sort of focusing on to try and push towards 500 senior career appearances. So those sort of things is what you miss. And you look back and I go, well, I'd barely got any goals last 2 years because we barely had any football. So the selfish stuff, maybe those sort of things you do look on and go, you know what, we need to get back to normal again. But yeah, like you said, we've gone through a tough period. I think football has probably been hit the hardest in terms of sports. But at least with football, we're allowed to get back now, and hopefully we've got something to go to. And like you said, we need the fans back massively, not only for the fans, but also for the players as well. Obviously, from a player's point of view, it wasn't the same playing last season. When we were in FA Cup round 1 and we had no fans there to appreciate it, it just felt absolutely crazy that there's this big game and then there's no one there. So I look forward to hopefully our first game being back, getting to be able to meet the Margate fans, become a part of it, and hopefully everything goes back to the normality.
Yeah, I really hope so as well. And there will be some very optimistic and ambitious Margate supporters saying you can still reach that 250 just with Margate over the next couple of seasons.
Yeah, good.
You know? It's not over yet, and I think it will be a really special season as well. And so many different factors. Obviously, the club hasn't had a home game since November 2020. August, that's a long time without any senior men's football. But not only that, the new kits will be back. It's 125 years. And my final question to you is going to be one that's been quite a theme throughout the interviews on GATEtv. I'm not sure if you've seen them, but obviously you've seen them. So you've seen all 4 designs. Which one helped seal the deal? Which one are you looking forward to wearing most?
To be honest, yeah, I think they were a deal breaker. I quite like that. I don't know what exact colour it is, sort of yellow volty one. That's a bit, it's a bit vibrant, it's a bit lively. But to be honest, I'm a big fan of all 4 of them. So obviously getting the chance to wear them, that's that. I think that was the deal breaker. That's what Jay said to me. He said, you're going to love our kits as well. So no, obviously that's, like I said, it's good to be a part of the club going through this time. It's great to be a part of this year. And yeah, like we said, mate, hopefully it can have quite a few years to come.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, Ben, that's a fantastic note to end it on. Thank you so much for your time. I think Margate supporters will really appreciate getting to know you a little bit more ahead of whenever that first pre-season game is going to be. It's going to be fantastic to see you playing at Hartstown Park, scoring for us rather than against us.
Definitely, yeah, definitely. Sounds good.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much. And thank you to you for tuning in. Do make sure that you subscribe to GATEtv for all the latest news, interviews and updates. Until next time, take good care.